Welcome to Lesson 11. And Lesson 10 introduced us to included sentences found in the shifter place. Those sentences we called adverbial included sentences, and they say something about the time or the reason for the idea expressed in the trunk. And adverbial included sentences may also present a contradictory idea. Remember, we talked about concession, or some condition that affects the idea in the trunk. Lesson 11 introduces us to another type of included sentence, this time found in the subject, object, and complement places. These included sentences are called nominal included sentences because they function very similarly to nouns. As we go through this introduction to this topic, I think you'll start to get the idea that it's very interesting. The same kind of a phrase, it looks identical. Depending on where it is, that phrase takes on a different job or a different function in the sentence. And so one group of words may be considered adverbial in one place, but in another place, that same group of words is nominal, or treated like a noun. It's a very interesting thing because it's not just interesting that it changes function, but it also affects the meaning of a sentence and what we understand. And the more we talk about these things, I think the more insight we'll have into understanding, reading, and writing our own sentences. So let's take a look. Betty knows that her boss wants her to work this weekend. Now, I don't think this weekend is a shifter for this sentence. For example, I don't say this weekend Betty knows that her boss wants her to work. We can see that, something else is going on here. This weekend belongs to a different part of the sentence. I don't think there's any shifters. Let's make our question. Does Betty know that her boss wants her to work this weekend? Betty doesn't know her boss wants her to work. And so Betty is the subject. Knows that her boss wants her to work is the predicate. And let's look for our ties. Knows ties with Betty. Knows ties with the present. This is the S form. The M place is here after X. It's empty. And Y is knows that her boss wants her to work this weekend. Now the Y is headed by the verb knows, the S form. So it's a verb phrase with time. As always, let's rewrite the Y. Knows that her boss wants her to work this weekend. Knows is the verb. Particle place is open, empty. Now, what does she know? That her boss wants her to work this weekend. This is the object, and this is an example of a nominal included sentence. It's an included sentence because it has the includer. It's a sentence because I can change it to a yes or no question. Does her boss want her to work? And the complement place is empty. Now, we already know that we're able to analyze sentences, and we're able to analyze included sentences. That her boss wants her to work this weekend. And we know how to do that from lesson 11. Let's cross out the includer. And now we're left with a sentence so we can see what's going on. Her boss wants her to work this weekend. This weekend, her boss wants her to work. And you know what? I think we're going to take this shifter out, and I'll explain to you in a minute why. Her boss, okay, does her boss want her to work? Her boss does not want her to work. Her boss is the subject. Wants her to work this weekend is the predicate. Let's put the M in because we have a lot of room for that right away. Wants ties with the subject. Wants ties with the present. Trying to save some space for myself. It's the S form. Why is a verb phrase with time. Now let's rewrite our why. Wants her to work this weekend. Wants is the verb. Particle place is empty. Her is the object. It's a noun phrase. To is the particle, and it goes together with work to make the infinitive. That's a verb phrase, no time, base form. And I think that now it becomes a little clearer why I said I don't think we should call this a shifter, because this weekend actually goes together with the work. It doesn't explain when he wants. It goes together with the action work. And as we go on now especially, we're going to see that sentences are actually a lot more complicated and there's a lot more going on than we really realize. The more sophisticated and the more pieces we have combined in a sentence, the more possibilities there are for different relationships and different things going on, which we'll see. Okay, I'm going to go back to red now because I think that that's going to work better for us. This weekend is usually, the weekend is usually when she does not work. There's no shifters. Now, when she does not work could be a shifter for a different sentence, but in this sentence, it's not a shifter. So let's take a look. The X word is. The weekend is the weekend. The weekend is the subject. It's between the X words. The predicate usually is an M word. And Y is when she does not work. I see right now for sure it's not a shifter. Is ties with the subject. Is ties with the present. And when she does not work is the Y. And that to me, she does not work, it looks like a sentence, but it's headed with when. This is actually a nominal included sentence. Let's see what place it falls in. You can already guess. When she does not work. So let's take the Y. It's the verb place is empty. Particle place is empty. Object is empty. And that leaves the complement. Remember, we've said if you have no verb, you can't have an object. So the complement is a nominal included sentence, and we know how to treat nominal included sentences. Let's rewrite the complement, and we'll analyze it. When she does not work, When is the includer? Does is the X word. Does she not work? She is the subject. Predicate. M word. Why? Does ties with she. Does ties with present. Does ties with work. Base form. Why is a verb phrase. No time. And now let's rewrite the why. Work. Work is the verb. The particle, object, and complement places are empty. Now, why is this a nominal included sentence? Because it's in the why in the complement place. No, there it is, in the complement place. In our first sentence, we had a nominal included sentence because it was found in the object place. Let's continue. Because the best way to see what's really going on is through examples. It's much, much more clearer. That she has to work this weekend upsets her plans. Let's take a look. I don't see any shifters. And, oops, wrong color. Does that she has to work this weekend upset her plans? That she has to work this weekend does not upset her plans. That she has to work this weekend is the subject, predicate, M place. I'm back to doing X, M, and Y first, simply because there's more room for me to work before I start to show the ties. Upsets, ties with the subject. Upsets, ties with the present. Y is a verb that's the S form. It's a verb phrase with time. Oops, I did that wrong. With time. And now let's rewrite the Y. I'm going to put it over here so we have room. Oops. Upsets her plans. And upsets is the verb. Particle place is empty. Her plans is the object. And the complement place is empty. Now I take a look at the subject, and in the subject that looks, she has to work this weekend, looks exactly like a sentence. But it has the word that. It's included with that. So what we have is we have a nominal included sentence because it's in the subject place. So remember, adverbial included sentences are adverbial because they're in the shifter place. Nominal included sentences are nominal because they're in the object, the complement, and subject place. So let's take a look because we know how to deal with included sentences. That she has to work this weekend. There's our included sentence. The includer is that. Does she have to work? She does not have to work. She is the subject. Predicate. M place in Y. Has ties with she. Has ties with the present. S form. Oh, just checking to see if I wrote it over there. Verb phrase with time. The Y. Has to work this weekend. Verb, particle, work this weekend is the object. And this is a verb phrase. No time. Base form. Okay, there we go. So if you want to stop for a minute and talk about it, that's fine. If you don't, we can continue. Now, nominal includers, just like we had adverbial includers, we have nominal includers. For example, that, when, where, why, who, whose, how, which, and what. And it's interesting because these includers look very much like question words. They also, the nominal includers resemble and look exactly like the adverbial includers, at least some of them do. So really what tells us the kind of included sentence we have, adverbial, nominal, is we have to recognize the place. Where are we finding this included sentence? That tells us the job the sentence has in that sentence. So now let's continue. We'll talk just a little bit more about something related to all of this. English is called a subject prominent language, and that really means that every English sentence must have a subject. There must be some phrase in the subject place, even if there's nothing for the subject to refer to. For example, some sentences without subjects are given one. For example, everybody says, it's snowing, it is raining, it is windy. But basically, it doesn't have any meaning. So why do we say it? Because a sentence must have a subject. And when I look at it is snowing, I see that we put it in the subject place. Now, there are some questions about X-word ties. Let's take a look. Are there some questions about subject ties? Honestly, there doesn't really represent something. It just means, this sentence means that some questions about X-word ties exist. But the way we say it here, we use there because every sentence must have a subject. We're really not talking or saying anything about there. Okay, so let's continue a little bit more. Now, in English, you can have quite a number of different kind of phrases in the subject place. For example, let's take a look. Thousands of Native Americans study their ancestors' language. In the subject place, we have a noun phrase. We can also say things like very difficult does not explain how hard learning a language really is. And so I can put an adjective phrase in the subject place. A lot of times people say, oh, you can never have a prepositional phrase in the subject place. But I wonder, is that really true? From recordings is just one way to learn an extinct language. Verb phrases with no time are very often in the subject place. Speaking is an especially difficult part of language study. The last thing I'd like to show you is that nominal included sentences, just like the one we just did, are often in subject places. That people want to study their own dead language does not surprise me. Now, English does do something that's quite interesting, and I'd like to show this to you. Even though people don't really have any problem understanding a nominal included sentence in the subject position, English, and maybe it's because of phonological reasons, maybe because of the sounds, but English tends to avoid putting nominal included sentences in the subject place. Usually we don't find it very often. And sometimes when someone does put a nominal included sentence and they want to use it like the subject, what they actually do is they take the nominal included sentence and move it so that it follows the predicate. And this is called a postponed subject. So let me show you. That people want to study their own dead language does not surprise me. Does that people want to study their own dead language surprise me? No. Here we have a nominal included sentence, and for me, maybe for you too, is an affirmative or a negative, it's okay, I guess. I can deal with it. But when I made that into a yes or no question, all of a sudden it just didn't sound right anymore. Does that people want to study their own dead language surprise me? And maybe that's the reason that we don't really put nominal included sentences in the subject place if we can avoid it. It sounds, in my opinion, much more natural to say, it does not surprise me that people want to study their own dead language. Now, does it not surprise me that people want to study their own dead language? What we have is we have the predicate to here, and here we've taken our subject and we've postponed it, saved it, and put it for later by putting the pronoun it in the subject place so that we have a subject and the real subject is postponed. Let's take a look at one more example of this. That she has to work this weekend upsets her plans. Does that she has to work this weekend upset her plans? And again, it feels a little bit awkward to say it like that, to ask the question with the included sentence in the subject place. Let me just label all this. So instead, I like it better. Does it upset her plans that she has to work this weekend? And what we've done is postpone the subject for later. This is the postponed subject. We'll practice this more in lesson 11 classwork. And for now, I think I've told you everything you need to know about nominal included sentences. A nominal included sentence is an included sentence we find in subject, postponed subject, object, or complement places. That's why it's nominal. So let's get ready to practice in the classwork.